The silver towers of Velterra Prime stretched high into the purple sky, their crystal surfaces glowing with soft light. Inside the tallest spire, High Coordinator Thexanael moved between control panels with his 4 arms working quickly. His blue skin had turned pale with worry as he read report after report of destruction. 17 colonies gone, he whispered to himself. 17 worlds just empty. The Void Swarm had appeared 3 months ago from the dark space between stars. No one knew where it came from or what it wanted. All they knew was that wherever the swarm went, everything disappeared. Not destroyed or blown up, just gone as if it had never existed at all. Thexanael's assistant, a smaller alien with 6 eyes, rushed up to him. Coordinator, the defense fleet at Nexus 7 has been consumed. The entire system is now empty space. Thexanael closed all 4 of his eyes and took a deep breath. The Zephyrian coalition had ruled this part of the galaxy for thousands of years. They were peaceful, advanced, and proud of their civilized ways. They solved problems through talking, through sharing knowledge, through working together. But how do you talk to something that eats entire worlds? Send out the emergency signal, Thexanael said finally. Broadcast it to every system in the galaxy. What should we offer? His assistant asked. Everything, Thexanael replied. Our quantum drive technology that lets ships travel faster than light. Our medical knowledge that can heal any wound. Our Starforge blueprints that can build new suns. Offer it all to anyone who will help us. The message went out across space, traveling through subspace channels to thousands of star systems. Most ignored it. Some were too far away to help. Others were too weak to fight something that could eat planets. But one response came back. It was from a small yellow star on the edge of the galaxy. The system was called Sol and it had 9 planets. The 3rd planet was marked in Zephyrian databases with red warning signs. Classification, Deathworld, the computer said in its calm voice. Extreme gravity that would crush most species. Atmosphere filled with poisonous gases. Weather systems capable of destroying cities. Dangerous radiation from the local star. Life forms present but considered primitive carbon-based creatures. Thexanael stared at the message from this impossible world. The beings there called themselves humans and they said they were coming to help. Far away, on a massive warship called the UES Retribution, Admiral Park stood looking out at the stars. He was 50 years old with gray hair and scars on his face from old battles. His brown eyes showed no fear as he read the alien message again. Lieutenant Kim, are all ships ready? He asked the young officer beside him. Lieutenant Kim Hanol nodded quickly. Yes sir, 12 destroyers, 6 cruisers and 4 dreadnoughts. All weapons loaded, all crews at battle stations. Commander Lee Jae-ho walked up to them looking worried. Admiral, maybe we should send some diplomats first? These aliens seem very advanced. We could learn from them. Park turned to look at Lee with cold eyes. Commander, read that message again. Something out there is eating entire planets. These aliens are desperate enough to call for help from a species they think is primitive. This isn't a time for handshakes and pretty words. Park walked to the center of the bridge where a large holographic display showed their battle fleet. 22 ships of war, each one built for one purpose, to fight and win battles. The ships were dark gray metal with sharp angles and weapons mounted on every surface. They looked nothing like the elegant, curved ships that most advanced species built. Sir, said the communications officer, the aliens are sending us star charts and safe travel routes. They seem very excited that help is coming. Park almost smiled. I bet they are. Kim, signal all ships. We jump to hyperspace in 10 minutes. As the human fleet prepared to leave, Park thought about what they might find. Earth had been fighting wars for its entire history. Humans had fought each other, fought nature, fought everything that tried to kill them on their dangerous world. They had learned that sometimes, the only way to stop something bad was to hit it harder than it could hit you. The aliens who sent the message probably expected scientists or diplomats or maybe a small patrol fleet. Instead, they were getting Earth's 3rd battle fleet, 22 ships designed to destroy anything that threatened human space. All ships report ready, Admiral, Lieutenant Kim announced. Jump, Park ordered. Space twisted around the human fleet as they entered hyperspace. The ships moved faster than light itself, racing toward a distant star system where desperate aliens waited for rescue. On Velterra Prime, Thexanael watched his sensors as the human ships traveled through hyperspace. How long until they arrive? He asked. 6 days, his assistant replied. Their ships are incredibly fast. Thexanael felt hope for the first time in months. Help was coming from the distant Deathworld. Surely any species that could survive on such a terrible planet would be wise and powerful enough to save them. He had no idea that he had just called the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. For 6 days, the Zephyrians prepared for the most important moment in their history. This would be first contact with a new species, something that happened maybe once in 1,000 years. High Coordinator Thexanael had called together the best minds from all 12 member worlds of the Coalition. Everything must be perfect, he told the committee as they worked. These beings are coming to save us. We must honor them properly. Teams of artists created beautiful welcome banners made of light itself. Linguists worked day and night to build translation systems that could turn human speech into Zephyrian thought patterns. Cultural experts prepared gifts, small pieces of their most advanced technology wrapped in ceremonial cloth. The welcome ceremony would take place in the Great Hall of Velterra Prime, a massive crystal dome where important meetings had been held for 5,000 years. Hundreds of Zephyrians practiced their parts, learning the ancient rituals of peaceful first contact. Remember, Thexanael told them all, these humans come from a difficult world. They may seem strange to us, but they are here to help. We must show them the best of our civilization. On the 6th day, sensors detected the human fleet dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. The Zephyrians watched their screens in confusion. The human ships were nothing like they expected. Where Zephyrian vessels were smooth and curved like flowing water, these human ships were all sharp edges and flat surfaces. Where Coalition ships glowed with soft inner light, these were dark gray metal that seemed to eat light. Every surface was covered with things that could only be weapons, big guns, missile tubes, and devices the Zephyrians didn't recognize. They look like... One young Zephyrian whispered. Like tools made for killing, another finished. But Thexanael kept his hope. Perhaps these humans just built their ships differently. Surely once they talked, everything would be fine. The human fleet moved through the system in perfect formation, not stopping to admire the beautiful crystal cities or the artistic space stations. They headed straight for Velterra Prime like arrows aimed at a target. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. Thexanael straightened his ceremonial robes and activated the greeting protocols he had practiced for days. The main screen lit up with the image of a human face scarred, weathered, with cold brown eyes that seemed to look right through him. Welcome, brave warriors of Sol 3, Thexanael began, spreading all 4 arms in the traditional gesture of peace. We are honored by your presence in our system. I am High Coordinator Thexanael of the Zephyrian Coalition, and on behalf of all our people, we thank you for hearing our call for help. If you would permit us, we have prepared a ceremony of greeting according to the ancient customs of first contact between species. We have gifts to offer and would be honored to learn about your culture and... Stop talking, the human said. Thexanael's mouth fell open. In 5,000 years of Coalition history, no one had ever interrupted a formal greeting. The human on the screen looked annoyed. I'm Admiral Park. We got your distress call about something eating your planets. Where is this enemy? How many ships can you put into battle? What weapons do you have? What's your industrial capacity for building war materials? Behind Park, other humans moved around what was clearly a military command center. Unlike the peaceful, artistic spaces of Zephyrian ships, everything here was built for efficiency and war. Screens showed weapon systems, tactical displays, and readiness reports. A human woman appeared next to Park. Half of her left arm was made of metal and electronics. Admiral, I'm reading their ship designs now. These aren't warships, they're basically flying cities. No armor, no weapons, just living spaces and laboratories. Another human, this one at a control station, looked up. Sir, preliminary scans of the aliens themselves show they're energy-based life forms. They probably don't even understand how our physical weapons work. Around the Great Hall, hundreds of Zephyrians whispered to each other in growing fear. These humans talked about war the way normal people talked about the weather. Everything was weapons and tactics and killing. Thexanael tried again, his voice shaking slightly. Please, honored guests, perhaps we could begin with some cultural exchange? We have much to learn from each other. Our scientists would love to understand your technology, and surely your people would benefit from our knowledge of... We didn't cross half the galaxy for a tea party, Park said, his voice flat and cold. You called for help against something that eats planets. Either show us what's killing you or we leave. We have other wars to fight. The words hit the Zephyrian delegation like physical blows. Wars? Other wars? How many enemies did these humans have? But surely you wish to rest after your long journey? Thexanael asked weakly. We have prepared quarters for you, food prepared by our finest chefs, entertainment. Our ships have everything we need, Park replied. What we need from you is tactical information. Enemy positions, attack patterns, defensive capabilities. We're not tourists. The human woman with the metal arm was studying readouts on her screen. Admiral, these people have been fighting this void thing for months and haven't managed to kill a single enemy unit. They've just been running away. Park's eyes got even colder. Is that true? You've never actually fought back. Thexanael felt shame wash over him. We are a peaceful people. We believe in solving problems through discussion and cooperation. Violence is not our way. For a long moment, Park stared at him. Then he turned to his crew. Captain O, prep the battle group for combat operations. Commander Yoon, start analyzing their enemy data. We're going to war. The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrians in stunned silence. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. The human war room was unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. Cold metal walls covered with screens showing star maps, weapon readouts, and battle formations. No decorations, no art, no comfort, just tools for planning death and destruction. Admiral Park stood at the center, watching as his officers studied the recordings that showed the Void Swarm in action. The footage was terrible, entire planets simply vanishing as the dark creatures consumed everything in their path. Stars going out. Space itself seeming to tear apart. The Zephyrian observers had seen these images many times, and they still made them shake with fear. To them, the Void Swarm was like a nightmare made real, something beyond understanding, beyond fighting, beyond hope. But the humans watched the same footage with calm, professional interest. Dr. Young Min-ho, a thin man with quick eyes, paused the recording and pointed at the screen. Look at the feeding pattern here. They consume matter in expanding circles, always taking the richest energy sources first. This is basic parasite behavior, exactly like locust swarms we dealt with on Earth. Or like the plasma worms in the Centauri colonies, added another officer. Park nodded slowly. What else? They reproduce by consuming matter, Jung continued. More food means more of them. They spread by following energy signatures. That's why they always hit populated worlds first. And see here? He pointed to part of the recording. They avoid certain types of radiation. They're not invincible. Around the room, human officers took notes and asked questions. They talked about the cosmic horror that had destroyed 17 worlds the way farmers might discuss a crop disease. Recommendations. Park asked. Major Kang Soo-jin stepped forward. Her face was covered in old scars, and she was missing 2 fingers on her left hand. She had been fighting wars since she was 18 years old. Nuclear bombardment of all infected areas. Use chemical weapons to sterilize their approach routes. If that doesn't work, we destroy the planets they're feeding on. Can't eat what isn't there. The Zephyrian delegation, who had been quietly watching from the corner of the room, suddenly cried out in horror. You cannot destroy entire worlds. Thexanael shouted, his forearms shaking. Those planets have cities, billions of people, sacred temples that are thousands of years old. Our history, our culture, our art, all of it would be lost. Captain Oh Min-soo looked at him with cold eyes. Her metal arm clicked softly as she moved it. Your history won't matter if your entire species is dead. But surely there must be another way, pleaded another Zephyrian. Some peaceful solution, some way to communicate with these creatures. You've been trying to communicate with them for 3 months, Dr. Young said flatly. How did that work out? 17 dead worlds, that's how. Lieutenant Colonel Shin Woo-jin pulled up a holographic display showing the coalition's territory. Red zones marked where the Void Swarm had been. Yellow zones showed where they were now. Green zones showed the remaining safe areas. Admiral, if we act fast, we can save about 60% of their population, Shin reported. The other 40% are in areas that are already compromised or too close to swarm activity. We'd have to write them off. A young Zephyrian scientist who had been silent until now finally spoke up, his voice shaking with anger. Write them off? You're talking about 40 billion people. 40 billion lives. They have families, children, dreams. They're not just numbers on your charts. Admiral Park turned to look at the young alien. His brown eyes were as cold as space itself. That's exactly what they are. Numbers. And right now, your numbers are going down every single day we waste talking about feelings. He walked to the display and pointed at the red zones. These worlds are gone. Nothing we can do about that. These yellow zones will be gone in 2 weeks if we do nothing. These green zones will be gone in 2 months. Park's finger moved across the map. But if we act now, if we hit the swarm hard with everything we have, we can save these areas. 60% of your people live to see tomorrow. That's better than 0%. But the cost, Thexanael began. The cost of what? Planets? You can build new cities. You can make new art. You can't bring back extinct species. Park's voice was getting harder. On Earth we have a saying, the perfect is the enemy of the good. You're so worried about losing some of your people that you're going to lose all of them. Major Kong pulled up another display showing Earth's history. We've dealt with extinction events before. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, plagues that killed most of the planet. You know how we survived? By making hard choices. By sacrificing some to save the rest. This is not how civilized beings should think, whispered one of the older Zephyrians. Captain O laughed, but there was no humor in it. Civilized? Your civilized thinking got 17 worlds eaten. Our uncivilized thinking might save the rest. Dr. Jung brought up medical scans of the void swarm creatures. Look, these things aren't evil or malicious. They're just hungry. Like any parasite, they'll keep eating until there's nothing left to eat. The only way to stop a parasite is to kill it or starve it. And if we can't kill it directly, we starve it by destroying its food source, Park added. It's not pretty, but it works. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of computers and life support systems. The humans continued their planning, discussing nuclear yields and bombardment patterns. The Zephyrians stood in shocked silence, finally understanding what they had brought into their peaceful galaxy. These weren't saviors. These were something much more dangerous. These were survivors. The darkness came to Velterra Prime like a living nightmare. The void swarm moved through space as a writhing mass of black tentacles and hungry mouths, each creature the size of a city block. They consumed light itself, leaving empty holes in space where stars used to shine. High Coordinator Thexanel stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching as his beautiful world prepared for its final battle. The crystal spires that had stood for 10,000 years glowed with desperate energy, trying to power the defense systems that had never been needed before. All ships, take defensive positions, he commanded through the communication system. The Zephyrian defense fleet moved into formation, 50 elegant vessels that looked more like works of art than warships. Their hulls were smooth and curved, decorated with flowing patterns that told the story of their civilization. These ships had been built to explore, to discover, to make contact with new species in peace. The void swarm reached the outer edge of the system and began to feed. A small moon disappeared first, simply ceasing to exist as the creatures consumed every atom. Then a space station with 10 million people aboard, gone in seconds, leaving not even debris behind. Open fire, Thexanel ordered, though his heart was heavy with the knowledge that it would do no good. The Zephyrian ships fired their plasma arrays, brilliant beams of pure energy that could melt asteroids and power entire cities. The beams struck the void creatures and passed right through them without effect. The swarm didn't even slow down. Sir, the weapons are having no effect, reported his tactical officer, all 6 of his eyes wide with fear. More worlds began to disappear. The industrial planet Kethmar, where they built their fastest ships, gone. The agricultural world Ventala, which fed 3 billion people, consumed. Each loss made the creatures stronger, bigger, hungrier. Then, just as despair settled over the remaining defenders like a dark cloud, space itself seemed to tear apart. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace not at the edge of the system but right in the middle of the battle. 22 warships appeared in perfect attack formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that no civilized species would ever build. Admiral Park's voice cut through every communication channel in the system, his words hard and cold. All human units weapons free. Show these things why Earth is a death world. What happened next would be remembered by every survivor for the rest of their lives. The human ships didn't hang back and fire from a safe distance like the Zephyrian fleet. Instead, they charged straight into the heart of the swarm like bullets fired from a gun. Their weapons opened fire, not elegant energy beams, but crude kinetic rounds and nuclear missiles that exploded like tiny suns. The USS Hammer, a heavy cruiser, rammed directly into a void creature the size of a small planet. The ship's hull tore apart under the impact, but as it died, it released its entire nuclear arsenal at point-blank range. The explosion lit up half the system and took 3 swarm clusters with it. "This is Captain Kim Tae-young," came a voice over the radio, calm despite the chaos around him. "My engines are gone and hull is compromised. Beginning ramming attack." Kim's destroyer, the Fury, accelerated straight into the largest void creature anyone had ever seen. At the moment of impact, Kim triggered every explosive on his ship. The nuclear fireball was so bright that automatic filters had to activate to protect the eyes of everyone watching. When the light faded, the massive void creature was gone, along with Kim's ship and crew. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Park wiped blood from a cut on his forehead and kept giving orders. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 12, reported Ensign Lee Doon, her voice steady despite the ship shaking around them from enemy attacks. "Seal the breaches and keep firing," Park ordered. "We're not done yet." The battle raged for 3 hours. Human ships fought with a violence that shocked the watching Zephyrians. When their main guns failed, they used backup weapons. When their backup weapons failed, they rammed the enemy. When ramming failed, they self-destructed and took enemies with them. But the most terrible moment came when Commander Bae Hyojin activated what the humans called their final option. "Sir, releasing Subject 07, Bae reported from his science vessel." From the belly of Bae's ship came something that made every Zephyrian scream in horror. It was a void creature, but wrong somehow. Its black tentacles were covered in metal implants and electronic devices. Its hungry mouth was filled with mechanical teeth. "What have you done?" Thexanael whispered. The answer became clear as the modified creature turned on its own kind. The humans had captured a void creature months ago, studied it, changed it, and turned it into a weapon. Now it tore through the enemy formation, consuming other void creatures with an hunger that had been enhanced and directed by human engineering. "You turned them into cannibals," breathed a Zephyrian officer. "We turned their greatest strength against them," Park replied coldly. "On Earth we call it biological warfare." The weaponized creature consumed dozens of its former allies before the remaining swarm finally began to retreat. But the human fleet wasn't finished. They chased the fleeing creatures across 3 star systems, hunting down every last one with the patience of born predators. When the battle finally ended, the void swarm was extinct. Not scattered, not defeated, completely annihilated. In 6 hours, the humans had solved a problem that had threatened the entire galaxy. But the cost was terrible. Half the human fleet was destroyed, and the space around Velterra Prime was filled with the wreckage of ships and the bodies of warriors who had died to save a species they barely knew. The silence that followed was deafening. The war was over, but peace felt like a cold, empty thing. In the great crystal hall of Velterra Prime, the surviving leaders of the Zephyrian coalition gathered to meet with their saviors one last time. The beautiful chamber, which had once hosted celebrations and peaceful negotiations, now felt small and dark under the shadow of what they had witnessed. Admiral Park entered the hall flanked by his remaining officers. His uniform was torn in 3 places and dark stains covered the fabric, some human blood, some from void creatures that had dissolved into black liquid when they died. His left eye had been replaced with a mechanical one that glowed red in the dim light, giving him the look of a hunting machine. The assembled Zephyrians, hundreds of them representing dozens of worlds, fell silent as Park walked to the center of the room. His boots made sharp clicking sounds on the crystal floor, each step echoing like a gunshot in the quiet chamber. "Threat neutralized," Park announced in his flat, military voice. "Enemy extinct. All void creatures eliminated. Your space lanes are clear for normal travel." High Coordinator Thexanael rose from his seat, his 4 arms trembling slightly. Around him, other coalition leaders whispered among themselves in their melodic language. After 3 months of terror and the loss of 17 worlds, they were finally safe. But somehow none of them felt like celebrating. "Admiral Park," Thexanael began, his voice shaking with emotion. We don't know how to thank you. You have saved our entire civilization. Our children will grow up free because of what you and your people have done. We are forever in your debt." Park's mechanical eye focused on Thexanael with perfect precision while his organic eye remained cold and distant. When he smiled, it was the expression of a predator that had just finished eating. "Simple," Park said. "Update your galactic databases. Mark Sol System as restricted access, apex predators. Make sure every species in the galaxy knows what lives there. And pray to whatever gods you believe in that you never need to call us again." The words hit the Zephyrian leadership like physical blows. They had expected gratitude, friendship, maybe a new alliance between their peoples. Instead, they were being told to stay away and be grateful for the privilege. Captain Oh Min-soo stood nearby, her cybernetic arm reflecting the chamber's lights as she moved. She was reading data on a small device, analyzing casualty reports and damage assessments with the same calm efficiency she used to plan battles. "Final count," she reported to Park. "We lost 11 ships and 4,000 crew members. Enemy losses, complete species extinction. No survivors, no eggs, no traces of void genetics anywhere in this galaxy." Dr. Yong Min-ho approached the group, carrying a data pad filled with his observations. The scientist had spent the past week studying both the void creatures and the Zephyrians, trying to understand how such an advanced civilization had been so helpless against what humans saw as a simple parasite problem. "Admiral, I've completed my analysis," Jung said. "The Zephyrians classify planets by how easy they are to live on. They marked Earth as a death world because they thought it was too dangerous for intelligent life. They were wrong. It wasn't too dangerous for life, it just killed everything that was weak." Park nodded slowly. "And what survives on a death world, Doctor?" "Killers," Jung replied simply. "Everything on Earth, from the smallest bacteria to humans themselves, evolved to be stronger, faster, more aggressive than their competition. These aliens developed in peace and safety. They never learned how to fight for survival." Around the hall, Zephyrians listened to this conversation with growing horror. They were learning that their rescuers didn't see them as fellow intelligent beings, but as weak creatures who had been saved from a problem they were too soft to handle themselves. Commander Yoon So-young, who had coordinated the final battle from her position on the Retribution, looked up from her tactical analysis. "Sir, their defense fleet fired over 10,000 shots at the void creatures. 0 hits registered as effective damage. They've been fighting this war for 3 months and never killed a single enemy." "Because they don't understand war," Park replied. "They understand negotiation, cooperation, peaceful solutions. But some problems can't be talked to death." One of the younger Zephyrian leaders, a female named Cythera who had lost her entire family when the void creatures consumed her home world, finally spoke up. "But surely there must be other ways to solve conflicts. Violence cannot be the answer to everything." Park turned his mechanical eye toward her, and she stepped back involuntarily. "Violence is never the first answer," he said quietly. "But when something wants to eat your entire species, it's the only answer that matters." As the human officers prepared to leave the hall, Captain O looked out through the great crystal windows at the Zephyrian cities below. Construction crews were already working to rebuild the damage from the final battle, and ships filled with refugees were returning to their home worlds. "Think they'll remember this lesson?" O asked quietly. Park adjusted his torn uniform and checked his weapon one final time. "They'll remember. Fear has a way of sticking in the memory better than gratitude." The human delegation walked out of the crystal hall, leaving behind a room full of aliens who were finally beginning to understand what they had unleashed upon their galaxy. They had called for help from a death world and they had received it. But they had also learned that there are some kinds of help that come with a price higher than the original problem. 3 hours later, the surviving human fleet activated their hyperspace drives and vanished into the darkness between the stars. They left behind a galaxy that was safe but changed forever. In the months that followed, every species in the coalition updated their databases. Earth was reclassified from primitive death world to extreme danger, avoid all contact. The coordinates to Sol system were marked with warning symbols that could be seen from 3 star systems away. And in the deep space monitoring stations that watched the galaxy's borders, new procedures were put in place. If anything ever threatened the coalition again, if any force ever grew strong enough to eat planets and consume entire worlds, the operators had standing orders. Under no circumstances were they to contact Earth for help. Some problems, they had learned, were better than the solutions that Deathworlders provided.